to join us tonight for those who are calling from North America, and then this morning for those of you in Asia. This is one of 2 monthly membership calls that we're doing. We're switching up the times going forward. We had previously done this on Thursday mornings in Asia time, and now we're doing this on Friday mornings just so we can have our North America call and our Asia call at the same time. So we appreciate you bearing with us. We're also on the Zoom platform. We've moved away from GoToMeeting, and so there may be some hiccups along the way, but we appreciate you staying with us. And just a warm welcome for everyone, and especially those who are finishing up a week of conferences. It seems lots of conferences happening this week, especially the ITS World Congress in Los Angeles, where Ryan and I were much of this week, and we saw a number of our member companies there. It's a really exciting event, and great to see the continued growth of the 𝘮𝑥 community. Let's go to the agenda. Okay, I think we have a full agenda for you. Is Mr. Roebuck here? Will he be able to do the working group updates? For Kendra?
He should be. He's planning to attend. If not, we'll get him on between now and the time that he needs to speak.
Very good, very good. So we'll have a little bit of a few updates on some OmniAir business activities happening. We'll go through our working group updates, and then Ryan's going to give us a preview of what we have planned for our Costa del Sol Plugfest. And early next week, we are doing our parade of test stations where we're reviewing all of the participating test labs and test equipment providers, and they're each previewing the testing they'll be offering at Plugfest. So stay tuned for that. And then we have a guest presenter, Paul Sakamoto from Harman, Harman Automotive, which is part of Samsung family of companies. He'll be giving a global view of where he thinks the market for 𝘮𝑥 is going, based on some of what he was able to observe and conversations he was able to have during the ITS World Congress. So we're really looking forward to that. So without any further ado, let's get started. So again, this is our membership, and we are deeply grateful for all of our member companies and everyone who's participating and helping to make OmniAir a success. I think one of the unique things about OmniAir is not only do we continue to grow, but we have diversity. We bring together chipset providers, automotive OEMs, engineering firms, tier 1 suppliers, other device makers, test labs, test equipment providers, and some of the agencies, the public agencies that are deploying these technologies. And we think that helps to strengthen our certification programs. We're especially appreciative of our growing number of members in Asia, in Taiwan, especially this year, in Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, and elsewhere. I'm very excited about that and looking forward to that continued growth. Next, please. And speaking of new members, we'd like to welcome 𝘱𝘱𝘯𝘪 Telecom Telecommunication Laboratories, part of 𝘱𝘱𝘯 Telecom. We understand that they have become an integral part of a large effort on behalf of the Ministry of Transport and Communications in Taiwan to help set up an ecosystem for connected vehicles, and they're working on a PKI system to accompany that. Do we have anyone from Telecommunication Laboratories of 𝘱𝘱𝘯 online?
Yes, this is Sophia.
Sophia, well, welcome, and we'd love, please introduce yourself to the membership.
Oh, okay, sure. Hello, everyone. This is Sophia from 𝘱𝘱𝘯 Telecom. As Jason simply sharing that the background for us to join OmniAir is that we undertake Taiwan MOTC's project, and what we going to do is to establish the standard for Taiwan about the PKI certificate guideline for the V2X. And yes, it's our honor and appreciate to have a chance to join this big family, and hope that we can work together and learn from each other in the future.
Well, it's a great honor to have you, and welcome to the membership, and we look forward to your contributions.
Thank you.
Very good. Well, let's go on to the next slide. And so we have 2 webinars next week. The first one is on what's called road usage charging. And we have the Maureen Bach, the Director of Innovation, the Chief Innovation Officer for the Oregon Department of Transportation, as well as Frederick Charlier, the CEO of ClearRoad, which is a startup focused on road pricing programs, from congestion pricing to road usage charging. And for those who may not be familiar with road usage charging in the United States, especially, our transportation infrastructure is funded through gas taxes and in some areas tolling, but by and large gas taxes. And as we have more and more fuel efficient vehicles on the roads, and we have more electrification, that means that we're seeing a decline in gas tax revenues. But the infrastructure needs continue to grow. So road usage charging is a form of vehicle miles traveled taxation, using a variety of different technologies. OmniAir has an initiative that is focused on developing a certification program to meet the needs of states like Oregon and California that are moving forward with operational deployments of RUC programs. And so we have a 101 on trying to understand what RUC is and learning from the experts. So we'd invite you to sign up for this. You can sign up on our website. I'll ask Ryan or Burkenda to put something in the chat box, a link to join, and hopefully you'll be able to partake in that next Monday. Next, please. And I love this image, but I think our team has gotten very creative here. We are having our 10th Plugfest, our Costa del Sol Plugfest, taking place in Malaga, Spain, the week of the 24th of October. And for our Plugfests, the testing is offered by our members, particularly our test laboratories, our test equipment providers, as well as SCMS providers. And so we have a really strong showing of test stations that will be participating in this year's Plugfest. And on Tuesday, September 27th, we will have a webinar that will be recorded. And so you have an opportunity to view this if the hour does not work for you. But we'll have a webinar where each of the test station operators will talk a little bit about their test equipment, their SCMS or PKI offerings, as well as their test lab capabilities. And so Ryan is pulling that together, and I'm sure he'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move on. So just tune in 12:30 Eastern on Tuesday, September 27th. Next, please. And of course, one of our valued members is the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Next week, they will be hosting OmniAir's Board of Directors, as well as our Coordinating Council, which is comprised of our working group chairs and the chairs of our sub-working groups. They will all be meeting in Charlotte on September 29th and 30th, and looking to develop our next 5-year plan and our technical roadmap. As there are a number of exciting opportunities for certification and certification needs, but where do we want to move the organization? We have programs in DSRC and C-V2X and tolling and modules and applications, but there are new opportunities on the horizon, specifically programs for protecting vulnerable road users, the V2G certification opportunities, as well as 5G MEC. And so where do we want to go and steer this organization? That's going to be the beginning of a conversation, and we hope to bring that to the broader membership and get your input as we move forward over the next several months. So we hope to be able to report out at next month's membership meeting on some of the results of that summit coming up next week. Next, please. And with that, it is time for our working group updates. I do know that we have at least one chair here. That's Mr. Jimmy Upton, who chairs the Cybersecurity Working Group. I'm going to ask Mr. Upton to go first, and then perhaps Randy can fill in with the full working group updates. Mr. Upton, the floor is yours, sir.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jason. I was delayed trying to join you at the meeting earlier today and another meeting, and I saw that you guys went on without me. So Jason, I'm glad that you were able to do that. A little disappointed that the meeting didn't come to a complete halt because I wasn't present. But
well, the world stopped without you, Jimmy. Last night at dinner, you were the feature, the subject of much conversation. So we can't even have dinner without you involved.
So glad to be with you this evening. Cybersecurity, we had an intern this summer who worked on this test document related to 1609.2.1, and we formed a sub-working group that is continuing the work that the intern did this summer. We'll be participating, this group is participating in the SEMS Manager Validation Policy Working Group that was recently started. So we will have this new test document for .2.1 available in the next few days, and it'll be published wherever Randy's going to publish the test documents for the Plugfest. We'll make sure that it's available to him to put there, and so people have the next month to prepare tests for that. And of course, we'll welcome any feedback on that test document before and after the Plugfest. That'll do it for me. Thanks. Jason, you're still muted.
Hello, Burkina. Why don't you go back to the previous slide?
So let me just say this, that we're pleased to welcome Mr. Randy Roebuck, our Senior Vice President for Engineering Programs, and our technical lead at OmniAir. And he's going to walk us through our other working group updates. And the floor is yours, Randy.
Well, thank you very much. This slide here gives our cadence of our working groups in the month, which usually meets twice a month, and it also gives the missions of what each group has been doing this year, so you can get a flavor of that, such as the certification scopes is working the infrastructure, data interface, and the applications, the cybersecurities, which Jimmy just mentioned is SCMS guidelines and electors and security authentication. And of course, he mentioned the recent 1609.2.1, the tolling payments group will go into a little more extensive on the next slide. There's 3 subgroups of the road user charging for our systems, payments, and the technology. Then we go over to the connected vehicle, the technology working group, which we usually cover the industry standards, regulatory, industry insights, and so forth. And then we also deal with the infrastructure and applications. Can you please go to the next slide? The coordinating council working groups led by Mike Brown. We're going to be, Jason mentioned, we're holding a technology roadmap strategies session next Thursday in Charlotte. The certification working group led by Pardiff. He's finalizing our specification 753, which is the certification matrices for both V2X and RFID tolling. And they'll be starting a V2X application scope and methodology here shortly. In our tolling and payments group, which led by Jake Royer of EasyPass, we did a in-person review and working session of the CIS multi-protocol conformance test tool at 𝘮𝘮𝘮 at the first week of September. Much needed meeting, bringing in the primary manufacturers, CIS, 𝘮𝘮𝘮, and moving that tool forward. We also were invited and completed a plaza audit at the Harrisburg, which is at the Pennsylvania Turnpike. So we have audited that, and we'll be updating its document and can be used in the future. We're also planning a CISC demonstration working group review of the tool in early October. We're busily working towards multi-protocol device services launch, and we have one document, which is a test specification, 825 tag programming in works at this time. In the road user charging group, which is led by Susan Martha and a bunch of sub-working groups. They mentioned that the RUC 101 webinar will be next Monday with Oregon DOT and Clear Roads. The Connected Vehicle Technical Working Group, led by Frank Perry. Most of these working groups have been working towards the Malagar Plugfest preparation and readiness. It's going to be here very soon. We've got about 3 weeks, and still a lot of work to be prepared for that. Jimmy has covered the cybersecurity working group. In the Connected Vehicle Radio and Vehicle Working Group, led by Jim Lansford, we're incorporated the J2945/1A infrastructure radio configuration elements into TS 762, and basically using that configuration at Plugfest. And we're also involving the test specification 759, which deals in modules and a global radio document. The next working group is the RSU and infrastructure, led by Nick Hagemeyer of Drive, Ohio. We're working the 1218 scripting and TS 785 verification. A lot of work from Mustafa Danlaw, Aaron from Drive, Ohio, and the 2 RSU manufacturers, Unix and Danlaw, to help move this task along. We also will be starting the CTI 44001 conversion and implementation. I'll talk to that standard in a next slide. This application group, led by Jess Baker of HNTB, we're incorporating the 𝘮𝘬𝘮 use cases and test cases in play that they have in place at 𝘮𝘬𝘮 into our 780A and 780B document. So that's what the devices will be testing to in about a month. Administratively, for Kinda, we've actually changed from the go-to meeting to the Teams communication platform moving forward. Next slide. Industry outreach activities. Jason has mentioned some of these. He participated on the testing panel at the USDOT VDAC Summit at the end of August. There was a lot of output and a lot of opportunities for OmniAir. Jason, would you like to mention anything about that?
Well, I would just like to say this, that the U.S. Department of Transportation held a 2-day summit in Washington, D.C. There was senior leadership from the Department of Transportation, as well as representatives from the automotive industry, as well as state departments of transportation and technology leaders in Washington, all coming together to help develop a strategy for moving forward on the V2X deployments. It was very interesting timing, as there was some litigation addressing the spectrum issues has just come to a conclusion. And so there is more regulatory certainty now. Also, there is a significant amount of funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, which is just signed into law, over $1 trillion that's flowing into various projects. The department announced made some announcements on funding opportunities, and I think some additional grant opportunities, including SMART grants and ATTAIN grants, are now published just this week. It was a great event to help encourage further collaboration and deployment of 𝘮𝑥, and I think it's a testament to the continued commitment from the Department of Transportation, which had been lacking for a while, and we were glad to be part of that and invited to present on that. I'll just also mention the World Congress. I just came back from the ITS World Congress, and we saw a lot of our members there, many on the phone, and of course many represented from ITS Taiwan, ITS Korea, from ITS China, Malaysia, lots of Asian and Australian representation there, and heavy emphasis on vehicle connectivity and moving forward with C-V2X deployments. 5GAA had a number of sessions that were illuminating, talking about different use cases. And there were some really fantastic demonstrations of connected vehicle technologies. One of my favorites was from one of our members, Spoke Safety, which has connected bicycles, and protecting vulnerable road users was a major theme of the conference, and looking beyond just connected vehicles to connected mobility, protecting pedestrians and bicyclists and transit users, and really having solutions that meet the needs of everyone. So great event that's just wrapped up today in Los Angeles, and I'm sure we'll have more details on that later. And Mr. Roebuck presented on OmniAir's multi-protocol tolling certification program in Austin at the IBTTA conference. And Randy, any insights that you picked up from the IBTTA annual meeting on the state of the tolling industry?
I mean, I haven't attended that meeting for about 10 years, saw a lot of people that I've known for a long time at that meeting, with just a little bit grayer hair and that perspective, but it was a very good panel. We did introduce our fall multi-protocol device launch there. I participated on a data security panel, and they had over 1,000 folks there, which was running parallel with ITS World Congress. So it was very well attended. Then we have we'll be participating at the 5GA Malagar Demonstration Day on Thursday, October 20th, with a number of members' test tools. They're definitely welcome to be with us, where we'll show off the tools, introduce them there at the 𝘮𝑥 Technology facility. Burkinda already mentioned the RUC webinar will occur Monday, and the 𝘮𝑥 test tools on next Tuesday. They already mentioned that the working group chairs technology session in Charlotte, and of course we'll be facilitating our fall Plugfest in Malaga on October 24th through 28th, which Ryan will give further details to in the upcoming slide. And there will be a certification policy day there on Tuesday, 25th, as we have had at many of our Plugfests. Then I'll actually be holding a certification training workshop in Malaga on Monday, October 23rd, and Tuesday morning, the November 1st, for a lot of the international folks at their request. Next slide. In the standards update, Jason did mention a little bit on the FCC. We haven't seen so-called the FCC rules come out yet. We hope they're coming out soon, but they are pursuing forward with the waiver to actually get these things started. In the standards world, there's been quite a few standards published just recently. The J2945/C traffic probe use was published in early June. We had the 𝘮𝑥 base fee collection published in June 20th. And this document actually brings our our membership together. We have one set of members that are that's tolling focused. We have another one that's connected vehicle focused. And this document actually brings both of those membership groups together, and should be really good for our organization. The 𝘮2735 message set dictionary and the PSID standards were updated in July, and the /4 road safety applications is targeted to be released at the end of the year. There are in-person meetings that's happening from the VI applications core and security groups that will be at Qualcomm in San Diego, which a lot of those folks were out in Los Angeles this week, and they'll continue on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Jimmy just mentioned the 1609.2.1. It was published June 28th, and we're actively bringing that so-called to the testing scope, and we really need good participation there to get that put into our process next year. The ITE, they released their 4501 connected intersection guidelines. Basically, they updated it, and it was published July 18th, and that's free to download and procure from their website. And also the CTI 4001 roadside standard, which we need and to implement the 𝘮𝑉DX in. It did some small updates. It went back through their balloting approval process. We expect that to be out any day. They actually have a walkthrough meeting on October the 11th in the afternoon. Next slide. Thank you very much. Are there any questions, or I think we're pushing the time, so.
Well, I'll just encourage folks to send you a note if they have questions, Randy, and maybe if you could put your email in the chat box, I think that would be great. And as always, get involved. You can join our working groups. You can click on the QR code there, visit our website, or just send an email to Ms. Cantlow or give her a call. And we will find a way to get you involved in any of the working groups. We know the times may not be as convenient for most groups, for most of you, but you do have that opportunity to participate in the chat sessions and the email lists, as well as the SharePoint files. So lots of ways to get involved. And with that, I think the screen's moving around on us a bit. With that, I am going to welcome Ryan Hall, who will give us an update on Plugfest. Mr. Hall, floor is yours, sir.
Okay, doesn't look like the slides are working, but I'll just give a little bit of an update. If anybody who had a test system and wanted to participate in the Plugfest, unfortunately you cannot. We have sold out of test stations. We were limited by the space at 𝘮𝑬𝑅A, and I think we have 15 individual test providers during that week. So it's going to be very comprehensive. I definitely want to thank our gold sponsors, as you see below, for their additional financial contributions to help make Plugfest possible. If you have a device under test, and you have not registered, please do so. We have I think we have 4 remaining spots left, and the logistics are going to get a little bit tougher as we're getting closer. 𝘮𝑬𝑅A has some new documents that we all have to fill out, so I will be sending on Monday requesting information about your company, who's participating, how many, that type of information. So that will come out on Monday for everybody. So if you're thinking about it or you're on the fence, just let me know and I can keep a placeholder for you. It should be very great. We're also having a connected vehicle workshop. We have a really great lineup where lots of officials from Spain, the mayor of Spain, lots of great topics about 𝘮𝑉DX and connectivity, RUC, You name it. There's a lot that's there, just not for the people who are testing.
Ryan,
let me
just speak to that really quickly. We're going to make an announcement on the speakers at our Connected Mobility Workshop next week, so stay tuned from that. But typically with our Plugfest, we have a one-day policy conference. That's been a little hard to do during the pandemic, but with the pandemic easing off, we're now starting to bring those events back in person, and we're going to have a fantastic workshop with panels on testing and security and ready to deploy. We'll have some featured keynote presenters, and Ryan mentioned some government officials from the EU that we will reveal next week when we make our announcement. So really looking forward to that. There's also an opportunity if you are interested in attending Plugfest but not bringing a device to test. You can always register for that workshop. We'll have some live demonstrations and tours of our Plugfest testing, as well as a really great reception. And last time we had flamenco dancers and Spanish wine, so I think we're going to top that this time. So it should be good. I'll ask Berkenda to put something in the chat box if you don't already have the link, and I think it's going to be great. Turn it back to you, Ryan.
All right. Hey, thanks, Jason. Thanks for the update. So Jason had mentioned, so after the, on Tuesday the 25th, we're going to have demonstrations for everybody as well. So for everyone participating in the workshop, we'll come down to 𝘱𝘱 and we'll get a tour of the different test stations, what's going on, so we can really see the depth of work that's occurring at a Plugfest. So if you are a test station and would like to have a specialized time slot to show off your device and what its capabilities are to the group, please let me know and I'll make sure to arrange that in advance. We will have a great networking reception like we did last time, as Jason mentioned. So we're really excited to see everybody. If it was anything like World Congress this week, it was great to see everybody from all over the world participating. And I can't wait to see all of you guys there as well. Okay, and I think the next one are just a couple of pictures of what to expect. So here's the 𝘱𝘱's test track. So we can set up RSUs and OBUs. A little bit different this year. All of the drive testing will be done in 𝘱𝘱's vehicle, and 𝘱𝘱 engineers will be driving all of the OBUs along the test track. Your engineer is welcome to sit in the vehicle as well and capture data, but this will help OmniAir make sure that it's generating the information that's needed to advance C-V2X technology. Okay, and up next we have Paul Sakamoto. I don't know, Jason, do you want to give the introduction?
So thank you very much. Yeah. So Paul Sakamoto is a member of our board of directors. He's a vice president with Harman Automotive. He most recently with Savari, which is a V2X startup that was acquired by Harman, and Harman also being part of that Samsung family. Paul started his career in the 1970s at Intel. He tells me the Silicon Valley. He's spent all of his career in Silicon Valley in technology with both chipset providers as well as other radio and technology companies. He even told us this week that he remembers when there were fruit orchards in Silicon Valley. So he's been around that long, but he has some great insights. We've had many conversations about where we think the connected vehicle market's going, especially C-V2X in Europe and Asia and around the world. And having come off of World Congress, I know Paul has a really great perspective and some unique insights, and we're really looking forward to hearing it. And without further ado, Mr. Sakamoto, the floor is yours, sir.
Today, speaking to you from actually ITS World Congress in Los Angeles. It's been a great show, and it's been great to get back together with people after a few years absence in my particular case. Anyway, mood here is very optimistic, and a lot of great projects getting kicked off here. We'll go ahead and hopefully, if everyone can hear me okay, I'm going to go ahead and start right in on some information, frankly, which just sort of got updated a little bit here at the show, even talking with people from around the world about their V2X deployment. first off, let's go ahead and look at our agenda here. I've got some Harman qualifying statements I need to make, and then we're going to talk a little bit about who's going to deploy first and second, and so on, out of the different major regions of the world. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the drag that we've got on V2X deployment and some of the things that could help, and how this affects actual real-world architectures that we've seen in various OEM deployments, and a couple of other, for those of you who know me, my typical bold prediction and conclusion. Always happy to tell people what they should do, right? Okay, so with that, first qualifying statement I want to make is, this is pretty much my analysis and opinion. Harman is going to disavow all knowledge of my existence if you go off and quote me. Although you can quote me, I'm just going to say they're not going to want to be bound by those statements. So there, as always, get what we pay for. So who do I think is going to be first, second, and third, and how what is my opinion after having talked to people here at the ITS World Congress? Well, first off, we do, as Harman, go off and for V2X, we've actually got multiple major OEM customers. We've deployed in projects that are going to come out around the world. And so I think we have sort of an insight to when this is going to happen from a commercial basis. And here's some notes here. First, clearly, I think most of us acknowledge China has been a leader in getting V2X deployment out. Key to that is they're the first ones to actually decide and dictate CV2X, or in particular, any radio standard, is the media that they'll use. They've got a general agreement on security standards, and they're in process for some other things, but you got to remember the Chinese system is such that they're okay with having rolling decisions, right? So, for instance, GNSS displacement algorithms, those are kind of known, and they sort of have that together, how they're going to license it, but it's not done yet. But since the deployment's not starting to really happen until 2023, 2024 for some of these things, they're okay with some of that being decided as the projects are being completed. And so what we're finding is in China, we're putting together the rest of the package. That last piece will come at the last minute. Everything's kind of just in time. It's sort of an agile country in a way. And that rolling deployment is kind of okay. Certainly the local manufacturers, the local OEMs are comfortable with that. And the global OEMs have learned to be comfortable with that. But definitely they've taken the lead already. I suspect that they will maintain that lead for a few years until North America comes on board. Now, here's something that I'll touch on later, but let's just look at it here. I said, decided on CV2X for the most part. So there's still some debate over things like how much bandwidth, how much channel width are we going to have for CV2X? The FCC allowed us the few tens of megahertz that they said they're going to have. There's been some pushback to that. And what this has done is it's just caused delay. So when we talk with OEMs, which, clearly I can't talk to exactly the ones, but it's a lot of the usual suspects. What are they saying? They're saying, I think we need to wait until that's decided because I don't want to have to go back and change something later. And as a result, in absence of a final decision, in absence of a final, this is the way it's all going to work, they're sitting there saying, yeah, we'll just kind of delay maybe one more year. And we've already seen that some projects that were supposed to come out and I can see their initial release for the 2024 model year in 2023, almost a full year off. And that's too bad, I think. The fact is, though, I understand their emphasis of caution. Another thing I'd like to point out is that there's a difference in emphasis for what V2X is supposed to do. In China, I've been able to reconfirm this. Although they care about safety, the fact is they care more about traffic mitigation and traffic control. And so as a result, that's the emphasis in China and one of the reasons why they wanted to jump on this sooner. In North America, there's an emphasis on safety. And I think what happens is everyone wants to be more careful, take more time for safety. And so there's a longer lead time on that. And it's been moving sideways, as we all know, for the whole time I've been in it. In the EU, although we'll get some different pushback, I had some pushback from one of the major OEMs from Europe yesterday even. I still think that they're going to take a little bit longer. They, depending on who you talk to, they say they have made a final decision. Others you talk to, not so much. I think there's some wavering amongst the major OEMs over there about their commitment to GSRC. And as a result, What does this mean? Well, you know, what it usually means in a commercial sense is we're going to wait till we know for sure. You know, some might ask, hey, how about Japan and Korea? Well, as we all know, Japan has its own standard. They've been, you know, had some limited deployment using their 700 and some odd megahertz radio system. I think that for them, you know, they're not expanding that yet. There's some debate there whether they will move over to a 5.9 gigahertz media, and I don't think that's been finalized yet. And in Korea, I think they're coming along with a CV2X that looks a little bit more like the US or North American standard, and I expect that what happens on the Korea Expressway will kind of push out and go to the rest of the country, and that will deploy very quickly, as is typical in Korea. But what this means is, you know, my point is, telling people what they cannot do, in the US, for instance, telling them that DSRC is not really a thing anymore, doesn't necessarily lay out what it is that we're going to do. So when we're a commercial entity, you're solidly bound by things like specifications and other things that you want to only buy it once. Actually, even public entities want to make sure that they only buy the equipment once or as little as possible. And so, you know, this elimination of DSRC did not fix everything for the OEMs. It made it a little better, but we're still seeing delays because they're waiting for that final decision on what is the final channel bandwidth, what happens to that remaining, you know, 10 megahertz that was going to be given to DSRC, et cetera, et cetera. How will this be allocated? Does it cause some other problem? Blah, blah, blah. And so what happens is we are moving sideways again. And not everyone's moving sideways, but we know of direct delays where projects were really just about ready to go out, and now they're going to take longer to be released. Not because there was more work to do, but just because they wanted more certainty about the specification. That's not the case in China. So with their agile approach, they're moving ahead, as I said before. And in the EU, although everyone says that they're done, they don't. It hasn't. You know, the talk's the talk, the walk's the walk. We haven't seen the walk go quite so far. And I'm thinking that actually a lot of it may have to do with funding, because clearly there's no other reason for a DSRC network to be there other than, in some cases, tolling, but for this V2X network, and it's the money is not necessarily there to do that. And how this affects our actual hardware, for instance, is the following. You know, the thought process as little as 2 years ago was that the preferred architecture to implement V2X would be on the left side of this slide. This is obviously a very high-level gross block diagram, but you would have the telecommunications control unit, or the TCU, be one piece, the CPU and then that would typically be interfaced at a minimum to an LTE modem, perhaps Wi-Fi, perhaps Bluetooth, but nonetheless, these are the major components. And then we'd have a separate V2X modem that would also be in there. Now, I realize, you know, you could have a chip that does both LTE and CV2X. There's all sorts of other permutations, but those are the functional pieces that were expected at one point to be part of the TCU. Once again, as little as 2 years ago, that was going to be the 100% up integration of V2X, and we would almost never see an OBU as part of a discrete V2X OBU as part of an OEM implementation. Instead, what's happened is almost 50% of our business at Harman, which is substantial, millions of units, has ended up being this architecture on the right, where we end up with OEMs coming in saying, you know, because of all the uncertainty, not only am I potentially delaying my project, but actually I don't even want to risk that all my TCUs are going to suddenly be obsolete. Instead of incorporating the V2X function in the TCU, I'm going to go ahead and have it be a discrete V2X modem for two reasons. One of which is, even though some regions like China have already made a decision about which media to use, that doesn't necessarily mean that that TCU, the global TCU architecture that we want to have, will then be exportable directly to the North American or the European markets. So instead, they've made a decision to keep that V2X modem as a separate ECU or a separate module, and then it's configurable depending on where they're shipping the vehicle to. And this seems like it would be a little more cost, but in the net, it's not, because once again, they don't despoil their global TCU concept, and they can make a different decision later. So this is the point. Now, you might wonder, why bother to do the V2X at all if there's uncertainty? Why are some of the manufacturers moving ahead, even with the uncertainty? And the answer has to do with, I'm sure, a bunch of complex things, some of which are probably confidential, but the one that isn't confidential, the one that we see time and time again, is NCAP, or the insurance rate. There's a lot of benefit to a manufacturer to get a better NCAP rating with the insurance safety rating. And there's different NCAPs from around the world, but the fact is that that is actually driving the adoption of V2X in some of these vehicles, even in the face of uncertainty and even in the face of not being able to go with their ideal architecture. What this has led to is a bifurcation in the market. You know, you have to make a decision to lead or to follow as an OEM. And there's advantages and disadvantages to both. I think the advantage for being the leader is, I've tried to list a few of them here. I think in general, not only do they save those NCAP points, but they also get ready for the real implementation. So depending on their financial model and the way they look at it, if they want to have the moral high ground for safety and things, they might go ahead and decide to be a leader. If really all you care about is cost, and of course, OEMs are all about cost as well, we've seen a lot of them make that decision to go ahead and delay just because they said, hey, this is my thing. I'm going to decide to be a follower in this particular case. So then, hopefully I've kept within my time allowance here. You know, what is my bold prediction? Like, China's in the lead now, and they're still going to be in the lead. We are already aware of millions of units that are going to ship out in the next couple of years, and there's going to be millions more because that's what they've decided to do as a nation and a government authority, and all the OEMs are falling in line, both global and local. North America is going to be a little fractured, and we're going to have a very rough, you know, sort of a ragged start. We're going to have go from this 2023 physical launch of the 2024 model year to some other time, and it's going to take even longer depending on what the politics of it all are, because I think the thing that's really going to make this go crisply, that could actually turn this around, with our knowledge that all of the automakers have something that could be pulled off the shelf and shipped very soon, is if there's a sea change in the US presidential election in 2024 that causes a much more lack of wanting to do a mandate. As we all recall, in 2016, we thought we were primed to have the US go ahead and implement V2X and have a mandate. Everything was all ready to go, but then it all got stopped for 4 years. And now, even with the changeover in the presidency, it hasn't really, frankly, come out crisply and moved ahead again. So we'll wait and see that. That's my one big qualifier. And then after that, I suspect that the full implementation in the EU will be at least a year behind. Once again, I've had some pushback from some European manufacturers, but I think from a reality, you know, you need to have everybody in line to get this to work, and I don't think that they're going to have that kind of a general agreement for a little while. Okay, so with that, hopefully that was helpful to some folks. Thank you very much. And
well, okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate Paul's remarks. Normally, we would take a question and answer service, but Paul, as you might have been able to tell, had to record that earlier today as he is flying right now back from the World Congress. So I'm sure that if you send Paul or Bekenda questions, we'll be happy to get those answered for you. Ms. Cantlow, do we have anything else to add?
No, I think we've covered everything. Just the one thing I would like to say is just to remind everybody to register for the webinars. You know, we love hosting them, and we would love for you guys to attend. So we've got the RUC 101, that's Monday, and we have the Parade of Test Station, which is Tuesday. Both very important topics right now and very timely. So we'd love to see you guys there. Our board members that are on the call, we cannot wait to see, and coordinating council, we cannot wait to see you in North Carolina this week. That's it.
Fantastic. And thank you all for taking the time to join, and wish you a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And look forward to your joining us at next month's membership call. Until then, have a wonderful day and weekend.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everybody. Have a good day.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you.